Welcome to the Brandwise podcast, where we talk about the big branding moves that business owners are making and the why behind it. I'm your host, Jess Freeman, here to help you be wise and be bold. Hey, Laura, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to chat. So to get us started, what is your brand all about?
My brand is called This Mother Means Business. I also have a personal brand for myself, Laura Sinclair, but I am really all about helping entrepreneurial mothers elevate their businesses and their lives through strategy, through support, through my podcast, through events, retreats, and really just trying to create conversation about what I actually think is like a real generational shift in women who are raising families and building wildly successful businesses and creating a space for that.
I love that. I came across you on Threads several months ago, maybe early 2024. And I followed you pretty quickly because I'm a mom, obviously, and I run a business, obviously. But there are a lot of people out there who help moms, but it feels very soft and cutesy and warm and fuzzy, which is fine for some people, but I am not that.
Yeah.
And you are very strategic and no frills and let's do this, and that's much more my vibe.
No, thank you. It would have been early 2024 because I actually broke my leg at the beginning of 2024. And that was the time where I was like, I have nothing but time to do anything. So I should go on Threads. And I've met the best people through Threads. And I love that you say that because for me, honestly, going full into I help moms was something that took me a while because for that exact reason, right? I was worried that if I leaned into the fact that I help moms, that it would be perceived as exactly that, this very cute thing. And I believe there's massive difference when you're a mom running a business. I mean, I've paid thousands of dollars for advice I could never use because I'm a mom running a business. And it's I am a wildly ambitious woman, and my clients are too. And they're super passionate about the work that they do. And they have kids and they happen to be moms and they want to be present for them. But I love that you name that. And I'm so grateful that that's something that came through for me. So yay.
Yay.
Because that's something that was sticky for me for a long time, and actually leaning into, okay, this is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it is something that's taken some time, even for me, to be fully comfortable with.
Yeah. And I totally get that because sometimes changing that niche or fully stepping into it feels scary, especially like you said, I feel like there's a certain messaging that automatically comes to mind when we talk about moms and business. So
it feels oh, that's so cute of you that you're a mompreneur or whatever. I mean, that's not a word that I at all. Please do not call me
right.
Whenever I'm using AI, which is a fair amount, I'll be honest. It always uses the word mompreneur or mama, and I'm like, please do not use those words. I've told you this 1,000 times. Do not use those words. But there's a certain level of cuteness to it, right? But I really believe that no, you can be a mom and have a very successful, wildly successful business and be just as valid and, important and worthy as someone that doesn't have kids. It just has to look different. And so, yeah, it's a real shame, I think, that a lot of the narrative around motherhood and entrepreneurship is that way. A lot of the time you think mompreneur, that word, right? You think MLM, you think, anything that, what is that? MRR. And I'm not here to shade either of those things. If you want to make your money doing that, then that's fine. It's not for me. It's not really aligned for me, but I was like, how do I show up and talk about this motherhood and entrepreneurship thing without it being piled in with these other groups of things that I don't really align with? So it's been an interesting for me for sure.
I don't know if this is just me or if this was intentional on your part, but I was just thinking as you're talking that with your name being This Mother Means Business, it feels, I can't think of the word, but if it was This Mama Means Business, I would definitely, I'm pink script font.
Yeah.
But you saying This Mother Means Business has a much tougher feel to it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, was that very intentional?
It was very intentional.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because exactly for that, right? Like this mama means business. And it's funny because when I talk to like SEO people, they're like, well, people aren't searching for the word mother. Like it would be better if it were this mom means business, this mama means business. And I'm like, no, like I hear that. Thank you. But like, yes, it's very intentional that it's this mother means business and not this mama means business, because you're right. Like those two words feel really different.
Mm-hmm. They do. They do. Also, I would just like to point out that Google knows search intent. So even if you kept using mother, they should likely show you if someone is searching mom or mama.
Well, thanks.
So, okay. So obviously we're here to talk about rebranding.
Yeah.
So tell us about the old brand and what made you decide like, oh, I need to rebrand. Like I need to make some changes here.
Yeah. So this Mother Means Business started in February of 2020. I'm like, what year is it? 2023 as my podcast name. And this was back when I was like still dabbling as a marketing expert and trying to play in that space. I mean, that's my training, right? My core competency is in marketing and visibility and helping businesses be seen. And so I was still kind of playing in that role, positioning myself that way. And so I started my podcast, This Mother Means Business, really with no intention of it becoming a brand. It was just like, well, it's the name of my podcast. And so I used what was at the time my personal brand creative, which was very like, it was like concrete and hard edges and neon and black. It was like, there was a real hardness to it. To create like my podcast cover photo. And then in May of this year, so I mentioned I broke my leg and was very lonely and alone and working with my amazing clients who I loved, but I was really just living in, I wasn't postpartum, but I might as well have been, right? Like I was almost like launched back into this time where I'm like, okay, now I'm building my business. I literally can't leave the house. I can't even drive. I have nowhere to go, and really started to tap into some of those feelings around like loneliness that comes up, because I was living it. And I am so lucky to have had the coolest people come into my world. And what was happening was I was starting to connect my clients that were in my mastermind and in my one-on-one coaching. And I was like, you guys should be friends. Like, I really think that you'd like each other. You live in the same communities. And this was happening over and over, is that I was connecting my clients and they were literally becoming best friends.
I love
it. It was
that.
wild. It was wild to see. Like by the fifth or sixth time that this happened, I was like, okay, there's something here. And so I'd been running these community connection calls every 2 weeks for the last 3 years on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. And again, there were like some really cool connections that were happening there. And I was like, Laura, you just need to formalize this. Like, you're in this season of feeling really lonely because you've broken your leg and you are trapped in your house. You seem to have a tendency to help people find their best friends by accident, like not on purpose. And you've been doing these community calls that people have been coming to at this point for 1.5 years consistently. Like some people have never missed a call that I've been running for free. And so I was like, okay, I think maybe it's time to do a community. And I resisted this for a while because there's so many communities, and how do I do it different? But the sort of, I was reading the tea leaves a little bit on all these things, and like, it was kind of screaming at me. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to turn this Mother Means Business into a community. It's still going to be a podcast. I'm still going to do my mastermind. I'm still going to do my one-on-one private partnership, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this a community, and like, why not me? And so skin's gonna crawl when I tell you this, but I think I went to like Fiverr and like did a little bit of like research of some logos that I like. Went to Fiverr, created this logo, this Mother Means Business logo, which was like not at all what I had envisioned, but it was something. And I'm a person that is pretty good at taking messy action. Like I will just like do a thing, and I was like, well, good, this is good enough. And I went into it knowing that this was like version 1. That at some point, like once I had proof of concept, I was going to hire a designer to make it, but I need to like see if people actually want this.
Yeah.
So I think I asked ChatGPT for colors, which again, it was fine.
I have tried that. In my opinion, I don't feel like it works well, but did it work for you?
I mean, it was fine, but I only let's be honest, Jess, I launched this thing in May and I think I had new branding by October. So it lasts for a little bit, but not really. And so, yeah, I got some colors. It told me the description. I was like, okay, cool. This will do. And then once we started to get, once we hit 40 members, once I started to really realize okay, we got something here. This is something that people are actually really into. And I'm so lucky because I work with a lot of branding people and web designers. And I was just like, okay, how do I choose which one of my incredible clients is the one that I'm going to go to do this brand? And I went to one of my designers or one of my clients and I just said hey, would you be open to rebranding this? She was like, I thought you would never ask. I hate your logo so much. It's okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And so, we did the rebrand in October and it's been really cool.
Nice. I love that. I love that you took messy action. No, I don't love that you went to Fiverr, but it's the world. No, it's okay. I would rather you, whether it's Canva and you DIY or you go to Fiverr or whatever, there's always a first iteration.
Yeah.
There used to be, it still exists. This quote, I have no idea who said it, but I remember it from several years ago about you can never get to your 100th podcast episode if you don't record your first.
Yep.
And then also along that same line, your first blog post, your first reel, your first podcast, your first email, they're all going to be awful, but you're not going to get better if you don't actually post the first one. And so as I always say on this podcast, branding and rebranding looks different for everyone. And I just love that you took messy action and with the intent and knowing I'm going to upgrade, but I want this proof of concept first. Because I also think that's really smart because I'm please don't spend thousands of dollars on something that you're not even sure is going to work.
Yeah.
It's not smart.
Thank you for telling me I'm smart. I appreciate that. I knew going into it that I would be able to sell to my existing community regardless of how ugly it looked. I knew.
Right.
But I also knew, because I'm a marketer and this is my, this is literally what I do, not on the creative side, but on the strategic side, I also knew that at some stage I'm going to need to run ads to this thing. And in order to get, the critical mass that it needs to be, right? When we think about math is always the path in business. When I think about, okay, this is I think at the time it was, when I first launched, it was $47 a month. Then it's $67 a month. It'll reopen at $87 a month in 2025. But you need a lot of people in that offer, right? To make it something that's sustainable. Running a community is a lot of work. And so you need, at $87 a month, $47, you need at least 100, 200 people for this to be okay, this makes sense for me to continue doing long-term. My goal for the community is 1,000 people, which is a really big number. But I knew that I would have to have people that don't know me yet see that and be okay, that's something I want to be a part of. And with my V1 creative, that wasn't going to happen, right? Nobody is going to be I want to join this community when it looks I don't know what this is. It didn't look cohesive. It didn't look overly professional. And so I knew that I needed to get it to a place where someone who doesn't know me, doesn't know who Laura Sinclair is, lands on this mothermeansbusiness.com, sees the branding, whether that's on social media or Instagram, and is I want to be part of that. And I knew that wasn't going to be a thing with V1, but I was okay, if I can let this thing just be ugly, it's fine for a little bit. And, we'll see how my people respond to it, then cool. I'm going to allow that to be the test, which I think is a skill of mine, right? There's a lot of people that have a harder time with messy action, but I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years. And so I was okay, I'm going to let this be ugly, but I'm going to put it out there because I know that my people in the community that I've built right now don't actually care. They don't care whether my logo is pretty, but the people that don't know me will care. And so when that started to happen relatively fast, the fact that my, membership already has 50 people in it as of this time of recording, And like, I need to start caring, right?
Yeah.
I've even seen, and we can talk about this too, is now that I have rebranded, I'm seeing a lot of people join the wait list. The community's closed right now. It's time of this recording, that I don't know, that are just like seeing this Mother Means business, seeing the branding, seeing what's on the site, seeing the logo, and is like, okay, that sounds like something I should be a part of. So that's been really cool.
This touches on something that I talk a lot about, especially in regards to your website, but I think it also applies to your branding, is so many people think about their branding and their website through the lens of my Instagram followers and my email list. And they think of like my community and my followers, and they forget about all the people who are coming across them via Google search, referrals that you don't even know are happening. And yeah, like you said, the people who already trust you and follow you, they probably don't really care what your logo looks like. But those new people, it's like, I always relate it to like the shady ice cream vans that drive around neighborhoods. Like, if it's your friend driving that shady van, like, you know, you're going to order ice cream. But if you don't know the person, you're kind of like, do I want to order ice cream? I don't think I do.
No, I think that's a really good example. And like for me, I owned a brick and mortar gym for 5 years. And this is like one of the best examples that I think I can give to anybody about why this matters. And if you were like, think about you right now, like you listening, just as we have this conversation, let's say you want to join a Pilates studio. You're like, I'm going to try reformer Pilates in my town. And you don't know anything about these gyms, but you know that, hey, there's some places that I can go and do Pilates or yoga or whatever you're into. You're going to look up all of these places, right, that are maybe convenient to you. And let's say there's like 3 locations that are within about a 20-minute drive of your house. You're going to look at all the websites. We're going to do this. Nobody just picks the most convenient one. You're going to go check it out. If the one that's closest to you has a terrible website and you're like, ooh, I don't know if this is the vibe. Like, this looks really, this is like, no, this might not be it. I'm going to start looking at other websites, and I'm probably going to choose to go to the place that maybe even isn't the most convenient for me because they appear the most polished. And that applies to every single business. It's not just a brick and mortar, but that's the easiest example that I can give because I think we've all done that, right?
Oh, 100%.
Or a dentist or somebody locally in our community, and we don't really know. Like, you are going to the website and you're going to choose that. And for me, like, I'm asking people to trust me, right? Like, hey, this Mother Means business, this is the place to be. If I'm going to tell you, I'm going to market it as like the premier community for entrepreneurial moms in the world, and you get to my website and you're like, not giving the same vibes, like, there will be a lack of conversion there. And so while it was a lot to stomach the cost of the branding, right? Like, it's an investment. I'm already seeing, it's been live for, at this point, like 3 months, and I'm already seeing massive change in the way that people are engaging with my brand. And that's been really cool.
I love it. Was there anything that you kind of kept in your brand from like the logo? Or, I mean, obviously the name changed, or the name stayed the same, but did you let go of anything, or did you let go of everything?
No, I mean, I pretty much let go of everything. I was like, I'm not married to any of this. The only thing that I did like was the color teal. Like, there's something about teal that felt aligned. And so there was, I would say, a refinement of a lot of the colors. But as far as like the logo and the font types, like I tend to gravitate towards serif fonts generally. I knew I wanted there to be a mix of fonts. And so there's like a core font in the logo, and then there's actually like the word mother is handwritten,
nice.
like hand drawn. And then it was just like trying to find, what felt right. There's, for me, the font's a little bit actually retro. It's from like a bit of like a 90s retro suite of fonts, because the woman that I work with, I'll be 38 in January. So I'm getting up there. But the women that I work with tend to be like in their 30s, into 40s, some are late 20s, but I'm not working with the women that are coming to my world really aren't like young 20s. And so I was like, okay, there's a piece of nostalgia there that I want to tap into. Like, I want somebody to look at that and like that font feel like home. Like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Like, I grew up with that. So that piece of it was important for me. But yeah, it was pretty much like a blank slate. But the beautiful thing was for me is that the designer that I hired had been in my mastermind. And so she knew me really well. She knew the work that I do and the impact and like who I am. And so from that perspective, it was pretty seamless. And I have the luxury of coming from a corporate marketing background. And so I make for a pretty good client as far as like me being able to be like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. This is why. And so I have lots of experience giving feedback and doing it in a way that's, of course, loving. But it was just like, I knew I couldn't say to you like, okay, this is exactly what I want, but I knew what I didn't want. And that made it easier, I think, for them.
Yeah. I'm a 90s baby as well.
Yeah.
And
I'm born in 87, but I grew up in the 90s. And like, so, you know.
Yeah. But when you said the like retro font, like throwing back to the 90s, there's nostalgia. I was like, that's part of why I like your branding. Because I'm very much like, I love 90s music and like 90s TV shows. Like I'm very, I love to.
It's a subtle nod for sure.
Yes.
Not like super in your face night.
Right.
There's something about it that like feels like, oh, that feels familiar.
Yeah.
And that was a piece of it that was important to me.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like from what you've said so far, but I'm curious if there were any like challenging parts of the rebrand process.
No, I would say like the hard part is for me is like I couldn't tell you exactly what I wanted it to be. Right. Yeah. And so I think a lot of it is like, I mean, if you're a person that's looking to do your own, like to have your branding redone, like you really have to go with your gut. And sometimes be like, I don't like that. I don't know why.
Yeah. Which I hear all the time as a designer.
Yeah. So the challenging part, I think, was like, landing on it. And then, I showed what was to be the final logo to my husband. And of course, he sees something that now I can't unsee. There was a slightly different font that we were going to use, and the eyes looked a little bit like ones. And so I showed it. I was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, "The eye looks like a one." I was like, "Oh my gosh, now I can't unsee this one." And so I'm like, "I've already approved this, right?" And so I have to go back to the agency and was like, "So I can't unsee this one, and I need you to figure it out. Like this isn't going to work." And so they were like, "Well, it could be like your number one." I was like, "No, it's dead. It's dead to me right now. Like it is. We need to figure it out." And fortunately, there was a different font in that same suite of fonts that was very similar. But if you look at the I in business, it was that I that looked like a one, and the new font, it's sort of like instead of it being straight up, like almost like a triangle, like the number one, it sort of like curves back.
Oh, okay.
And so when they made that swap, I was like, okay, well, this is better. We'll just go with this. Like no more ones. So some of it is like, this is stuff you don't see. So I would say like that was probably the biggest challenge, is being like, yeah, I think I got it. And then you're so in it, that you don't go to someone else. Like my husband is a firefighter. He has no business ruining my process. But I'm so glad that I did, because if it had been like, yep, that's it, and then he makes that association, it would have just shattered me. So yeah, glad that I caught that. We caught that before.
Can you speak to how you decided to rebrand without knowing what you actually wanted? Because I actually have that conversation a lot with people that they will DM me and they're like, I'm thinking about a new logo or new website, but I don't know what I want.
Yeah. So it definitely for me like starts with a feeling. And you're like, oh, I feel detached from this. And for me, it actually started with my personal brand first. Because, I've been feeling detached from my personal brand for like 18 months at that point, but wasn't about to make the investment because I just really couldn't justify it. But I was feeling like, I'm like almost like hating what I'm posting. And it got that way with the Smother Means business too. I was like, oh, I'm putting this stuff out and it like feels so, it just doesn't, I don't feel good about it. And so it started with like just that feeling of like, I am no longer proud of this. This no longer feels like me. And I think these are things we really have to lean into, especially when, you're building a personal brand. Like this is you. This is like, all of this is me right now. My goal for the Smother Means business is for it to become bigger than me and for it to live beyond Laura Sinclair. And when people think of This Mother Means Business, maybe they'll think of me, but if they don't, then that's fine. But I just was like in this place where I didn't even feel like, I literally felt this like feeling in my gut that was like, ugh, every single time. Like it gave me the ick. That would be the best word. Like my own branding gave me the ick.
Yeah.
And so that was the first piece. And then the second piece was just like starting to really think about how I wanted to feel.
Mm.
And that was where like the 90s piece came out of it. Like I knew that I wanted there to be like a bit of a nod to the 90s. How I wanted the colors to feel, and really thinking about what I like. And so I did some, you know, I think one of the hardest activities of all was, you know, the agency sent me like the thing that you got to fill out, you know, the things you like, the things you don't, brands you like, brands you don't. And that was really hard for me to start thinking about, okay. And I knew that I wanted it to be text. I knew that I didn't want there to be any like icons or anything like that. And I like things that are simple. I've always like gravitate towards things that are clean. So it really just started with me starting to pull out, okay, what do I like? And then what don't I like? And how do I want it to feel? And like, what's the vibe of it? And, you know, we talked about this earlier with like motherhood and entrepreneurship. For me, I really wanted it to feel not cute. That was really important. So like no pink. Don't you dare bring pink near my brand. I don't want that. And this is like, if you love pink, that's fine. It's just pink and motherhood paired together, I think immediately goes to MLM. It immediately goes cute. So I knew that wasn't an option. Pink's also, I really like the color purple. Purple actually is in the brand. And then started to pull out like, what are the actual requirements? Like, what do I need? So This Mother Means Business is a podcast. This Mother Means Business is a community. I also host a This Mother Means Business retreat every year. I'm hosting the This Mother Means Business event next year in April. And so it was like, how do I build something that's going to support me across all of those things? And so we did that through, you know, sub-variants of the brand and like different colors. So the events are purple, the podcast is orange, and the community is that teal color. And so it's like those three sort of entities underneath the brand all have their own sort of hero color that work together. And so it started with that. And then, you know, I didn't want it to feel overly masculine. I didn't want it to feel too stuffy. Like I didn't want it to feel like a law firm, but I also wanted it to feel professional and fun. And so I just started like leaning into the words and the things that I liked. And me, I do really think though that because Darcy, who's the Boda Creative, because she knew me really well, she was like, okay, like Laura's going to hate that. This is Laura. That's not Laura. Although, you know, you start with like 3 different ideas, concepts. And like, I immediately vetoed the first 2. I was like, no. And then the third version was something similar to what we have now. And the other piece of it that's really hard is like, I didn't want it to be like everything I've seen on the internet before. Like some of the concepts, and this is like no shade to the team. It's just like, I look at the stuff all the time. Right. And I'm like, I have seen that a million times.
Yeah.
Don't give me something I've seen a million times. I don't want that. So yeah, trying to narrow it down was hard, but I think a big part of it is just like kind of going with your gut.
I like how you talk about the feeling and how that changed before and after.
Yeah.
And that's something that has come up a lot in these conversations, is people kind of holding back when they were posting or not posting even because they were like, it doesn't feel good and I don't want to post it. And it's, I was talking with someone the other day just about how you don't realize that the colors are playing into that sometimes. Like it's a subconscious of like, oh, I don't know what to post, or I don't know the graphic. Like you don't realize, like everyone thinks it's just colors. It's just
no.
And you're like, but the colors are keeping you from like showing up.
Yeah.
So
no, the colors are big. I mean, I think about it in the context of This Mother Means Business. It was like, okay, I don't want pink. I knew that because I think, again, like colors mean things, you know?
Yeah.
And because I have already had this like little bit of resistance around motherhood and entrepreneurship, and like, how do I make it so that people that are seeing this know that this is like legit, not just like, oh, it's so cute in here. It's like, no, you are going to build this wildly successful business. We're going to support you through it. And however you want to show up for your kids. Like, I don't think there's one definition of good motherhood. How you can mother, what your kids need, that's different for everybody. Some people want to build, a mom first business. They want to be at home with their kids and then have build their business in the nooks and crannies of time. That's beautiful. Other people, their kids are at school, they're in care, and they want to go all in their business on those windows, but then be present when their kids are home. Other people, maybe they have full-time nannies and they want to, be with their kids in the nooks and crannies of time. Like, I have zero judgment for any of that, how you want a mom, but it's up to you. And so I think it's like, for me, in the context of This Mother Means Business, it's really about, how do you build it the way that you want to? And it's not about like one first, right? It's not a lot of communities, a lot of the mom stuff I see is very like mom first and then business, which is fine. For me, it's like, no, we're going to rock both. We're going to do both.
Yes.
You're going to, if you want to, there's going to be seasons, and I'll admit this right now. There are times where I would much rather work on my business than play with my kids. I am still present with my kids for more time than if I were working a corporate job. That's for darn sure. But I love my business. I love the work that I do. I could do it all day. I don't, but I love it. I mean, last night I put my kids to bed and I worked till 10 o'clock. Not because I had to, because I was just like really into the thing that I'm working on and I can't wait to get it out into the world. And so it's like kind of in that energy, right? And like, how do we create support for women that are like super in love with their kids? My kids are the best. They're the coolest. I would hang out with them all the time, but I can't hang out with them all day. I can get them what they need. I got to do my other things. And so it's really just like about creating that space. So back to your point about, colors, I think for pink was a no. Purple I love. And then it was like, how do we pick something that feels really inclusive and like for everyone and safe? I think that piece of it was important to me. I wanted people to like see themselves in the colors. So like it's actually quite a vibrant palette. There's like an orange, there's a purple, there's teal, there's a dark blue, there's like a light green. Like it's a pretty bright and like punchy color scheme, which is something I definitely would have shied away from like a few years ago, but I love it. And orange is not my favorite color. However, I will say orange continues to show up in all of my businesses. Like I bought my CrossFit gym that I ran was orange. So it just like feels like that was the branding. The gym had like an orange pull-up rig. Like it was orange, like your gym is orange. And so I feel like having orange now in my brand like just kind of feels like a subtle nod to that business, and maybe I'm just meant to have orange brands.
You're like, it's just there's just gonna be a little bit of orange.
It is, but orange is so far from my favorite color. Like I don't wear orange, I don't
say
orange in my home, but for whatever reason my businesses are always end up orange.
I love that. Okay, so you kind of mentioned some of this previously, but talk to us about how the rebrand has impacted your business.
Yeah, it's been really cool. So for me, I rebranded both This Mother Means Business and my personal brand. And so, I can feel a little convoluted, but for me, like within Laura Sinclair, I have my mastermind that I run, and I do private partnership. And so for me, a lot of what I was putting out, and I mentioned this, was like neon and black and like hard, and that just really didn't feel like me. Because yes, I will not bullshit you. Yes, I'm gonna like give you the facts, but I also like just want to hug and be friends and like have your back and be a super safe space for you. And I feel like my branding like really wasn't capturing that. It was like literally I have an icon for my original brand that's like says no BS in it. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't feel good for me anymore. Like I want us to all hug and I'm going to have your back and I'm going to be your best friend, but like not actually, and be your mentor and like hold your hand through it. Like literally, I like to be the parachute for people when they jump off a cliff, and like I'm just there. We got this, and I just didn't feel like that. So I have definitely had like a lot of different conversations with women, like seeing more connection. I feel more excited about how I'm showing up on my personal brand side. It just feels like a lot more like me. And then on the This Mother Means Business side, one of the decisions that I made towards the end of this year was to actually close the membership and go to a wait list sort of model, mostly because the membership was growing really fast. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I serve these people in the best way? I think because I took such messy action in the beginning, kind of need to take a step back and be like, whoa, okay, like this is awesome. It's a little messier than I want it to be. And so gave myself some space there. But what I'm finding is like the rate at which people are putting their name on the wait list is far faster than anything I have seen probably in my business ever, which has been really cool. And I've trickled that branding over into my mastermind. I have a wait list for my mastermind. That list is growing faster than I've seen ever. So I think that's like kind of twofold, right? Like I've been doing this work now for 4 years. I'm more present and growing that visibility. But also, I don't think people would put their name on the wait list if they got to the page and didn't feel excited about it. And so I'm seeing people that I have never connected with. I don't know who they are. Maybe they found me on Threads or Instagram or wherever. And starting to do that. And then into 2025, I'm going to be focusing on some of the SEO stuff, more blogging, probably running some ads towards the back half of the year. And so I think it's just like been a really, really cool to see, right? Like A plus B does equal C in this situation because nothing has changed, right? Like I'm the same person. The program has changed. I just threw up a wait list, right? And all of a sudden everybody wants to be part of it. Like I was on a coaching call with my own business mentor yesterday, and we were talking about this wait list. And I was like, in the time we'd been on the call, 3 people have put their name on the wait list, which felt kind of chaotic. It's like, oh boy, we got to figure this out. So it's great. It's there's nothing else that I can correlate there other than this looks really cool now. And so people want to be part of it, which is great.
But I do think it's important that you mentioned, like, yes, the branding helped, but you were also already visible and still marketing yourself. Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to like invest in this branding and this new website, and then it'll just be magical and everybody will come find me. And I'm like, you still have to put yourself out there. Like I had this conversation with someone who was interested in maybe working with me. And she was like, okay, so can you like guarantee results? And I was like, well, I mean, like not guarantee, no, because it's your business. Like I can show you what has happened for other clients and the results that have happened, but you still have to show up and be. And she was like, well, I don't have time to be on Instagram. I don't have time to blog. And I was like, well, then I don't know.
Well, then you better pay somebody else to do it for you.
Yeah.
I mean, then it's so hard, right? Like you can't be somebody's face.
Right. Yeah. And she was like, but it just like, I know my website is not like, it's underselling me. It doesn't look good. It actually looks really bad. And I know that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, yes, this would help, but this is only part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like you still have to show up somewhere.
Yeah. Just because you build it does not mean they will come.
Nope.
And I did that, like I think about, so if I, take myself back to 2018 when I owned a gym, I was doing a lot of like postnatal fitness coaching at the time. And I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives since then, but I paid $5,000 for a website that, was put together locally. And even though I had a corporate marketing background, I was bad at putting myself out there. It was just like, I'm going to do things the corporate way, which is you build a website and you post some stuff on social media. And I wasn't nearly as skilled in building a personal brand back in 2018 than I am today. And yeah, I spent the money, built the website. I think I got like maybe 1 lead from it. And the 1 lead I got was like a client of the people that built my website. So it was literally a referral. So yeah, it's, you need a website, you need good branding. I think, but I'm a visibility expert. If you, you have to do the things. And I just had this conversation with a client the other day who, says she wants XYZ. And I had to lovingly call her out. So like, I get that you want these things, but are you doing what is required in order to make them happen? Because if the answer is no, like you need to adjust your expectations. And we talk about this in fitness all the time. Like, are your expectations and your actions aligned? Just don't come to me and tell me you're disappointed that it didn't work out when you didn't do any of the things that are necessary. And especially now, right? Like it's fun to think, oh, I'm too busy to show up. Well, it's your job. So you got to find a way.
Yeah. You got to make it happen. Okay. Last question. What advice do you have for someone who's like, okay, maybe I should rebrand?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, I'm going to be like, do it. I think it's like, why, right? Like, why do you need to rebrand? Like, what's coming up for you? If it's any of the things that I just talked about, like, you know that you did V1, you DIY'd it, it's ugly, it's probably holding you back, then do it. If it's something that you like literally feel that visceral, like, ugh, it gives you the ick right now and you don't even want to show up for it, do it. If, you know, if you're running a local based business and you are looking at your competitors and they are all shiny, beautiful, and you are, you know, branding from 10 years ago and your website is on, you know, old Wix and it looks like whatever, right? Like, none of that's good. We don't want that. So it's always worth the investment. I think a big thing is talk to different designers, different creatives, because everybody does different kind of work. Like I mentioned that I work with a lot of designers, a lot of branding people, a lot of people that build websites. And the way that I decided on who it was going to be was whose work was most aligned, like the closest to what I desired. So different designers have different vibes. They do different types of work. They specialize in different things. It's the same like artists, right? I mean, they are artists in a lot of ways. Like you're not going to go from one acrylic artist to the other and be like, paint me the same thing. Like it doesn't work that way. So I think that's a really important piece of it, is making sure you're finding somebody that's doing work that looks aligned. And so all of those people, Jess included, have beautiful portfolios on their sites. Go check those out. Meet with people. Get different quotes. I would say that there is a pretty wide range in websites, in branding. I think you get what you pay for a lot of the time, but you might not need to spend $25,000 on a website and branding. You may need to spend $10,000. Maybe I don't know. You know, like it's just figure out who's going to deliver for you, who vibes with you. That's an important part. Like it's an intimate process. You really need to work with somebody that can understand you and pull out maybe the parts of you that you're not really even ready to say out loud yet. So there has to be a level of comfort there for sure. But if it's something that you're thinking about doing, I would definitely recommend at least starting the process of understanding, okay, what would that look like?
Love that. Thank you. That was really good advice. I like it. Where can we connect with you online?
Yeah, if you made it this far, we are definitely friends. So you can learn more about the community and what I'm doing at This Mother Means Business at www.thismothermeansbusiness.com. I'm on Instagram at It's Laura Sinclair. You can also go to laura-sinclair.com if you want to learn more about the work that I'm doing there. But I am on Threads. I hang out on Threads. I hang out on Instagram. The podcast is This Mother Means Business. So any of those places, it's Laura Sinclair or This Mother Means Business.
Awesome. I will link to those in the show notes so you guys can go connect with Laura. But thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
If today's branding story inspired you and you're ready to start your own rebrand adventure, head over to justcreatives.com/rebrand to explore how we can work together on your brand. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to leave a review or share it on Instagram, and tune in next week for another episode.